Order a latte in Italy and you might get plain milk. Order a macchiato at Starbucks in Rome and they're almost opposites. Then there's a coffee people eat with a spoon. So, how many coffee drinks have you been ordering wrong? Espresso. The most important coffee drink on this entire list isn't actually a drink, it's a method. Espresso is hot water forced through packed, finely ground coffee under pressure, usually around 9 bars, in roughly 25 to 30 seconds. That's it. Not a bean, not a roast level, a technique. That pressure is also what creates the reddish gold crema on top. Change the grind a little or shave a few seconds off the pull, and the same beans can taste completely different. Espresso is sensitive like that. The method took off in Italy because cafes needed speed. Pressure turned a cup that once took minutes into a shot pulled in seconds. And once you have that shot, tiny changes in water create completely different drinks. Doppio, ristretto, and lungo. Same beans, same machine. 3 drinks that barely resemble each other. A doppio is simply a double espresso. A ristretto cuts the water off early, leaving a smaller, thicker, more concentrated shot. Lungo goes the other direction, pushing more water through the same puck for a longer, larger pull. The easy way to remember it: ristretto restricts the water, lungo stretches it out, and doppio just doubles down. But water isn't the only thing that can completely change an espresso. Milk is where the menu starts lying to your brain. Macchiato and latte macchiato. 2 drinks share almost the same name and are built in opposite directions. A traditional macchiato is espresso stained with a small dollop of milk foam. That is basically the whole drink. Now, compare it with a caramel macchiato from a major chain, which is closer to a vanilla latte with caramel on top. Same name, nearly the opposite drink. Then the latte macchiato flips it again. Steamed milk goes in first, espresso lands on top, and the drink can sit in visible layers. Literally, milk stained with coffee. Traditional macchiato, mostly espresso. Latte macchiato, mostly milk. If that sounds confusing, one country solved a milk shortage with something much stranger: Vietnamese egg coffee and Vietnamese iced coffee. Picture strong coffee topped with whipped egg yolk that tastes like liquid tiramisu. That's the actual drink. The popular story goes back to Hanoi in 1946, when dairy milk was scarce. Nguyen Van Giang, working at the Sofitel Legend Metropole, whipped egg yolks with sugar and condensed milk to recreate that richness without fresh milk. The result was a custard-like foam that still defines Vietnamese egg coffee today. Vietnamese iced coffee solved the same problem differently. Strong coffee brewed through a small fin filter, then sweetened with condensed milk that could survive the heat far better than fresh dairy. Same shortage. 2 totally different solutions. Vietnam used egg and condensed milk. Italy turned milk and foam into one of the most misunderstood drinks on any menu: cappuccino. Here's an Italian drink named after monks, with a cultural rule tourists break constantly without realizing it. According to the popular story, the brown color of espresso mixed with milk resembled the robes of Capuchin friars. Structurally, a cappuccino balances espresso, steamed milk, and a much more noticeable cap of foam than a latte. In Italy, it's traditionally a morning drink, and many Italians skip milky coffee after meals. Nobody is going to arrest you for ordering one at 3 p.m., but you might get a look. That thick foam is the point. If you want the opposite, more milk, almost no foam, and a softer coffee flavor, you are asking for the drink people misname constantly: latte. Remember when I said ordering a latte in Italy might get you plain milk? Here's why. Cafe latte means coffee with milk. Outside Italy, people dropped the first word and kept latte, literally milk. The cafe version is usually espresso drowned in steamed milk with only a thin layer of microfoam. That thin, silky surface is why lattes became the canvas for hearts, rosettas, and the rest of latte art. But if you actually want the coffee flavor to stay in front, 2 smaller drinks make more sense: flat white and cortado. Australia and New Zealand have argued for decades over who invented one of these. Neither side seems interested in giving up. The flat white uses espresso with less milk than a latte and a thin, velvety layer of microfoam, keeping the coffee flavor much more obvious. The cortado is smaller and roughly equal parts espresso and steamed milk, just enough dairy to soften the shot without burying it. A flat white is smooth and espresso forward. A cortado is compact and punchy. Both are basically for people who want milk in their coffee, but refuse to lose the coffee underneath it. Finland looked at that entire milk versus coffee debate and apparently decided liquid dairy was not enough. Kaffeost. Yes, this is coffee with chunks of cheese sitting in it. Kaffeost, or coffee cheese, is associated with the Sami people of northern Finland and Sweden. Cubes of a mild squeaky cheese are dropped directly into hot coffee. The cheese softens and absorbs the coffee without simply disappearing into it. Then comes the part that makes this unlike anything on a normal cafe menu. You drink the coffee and eat the coffee-soaked cheese with a spoon afterward. Milk in coffee suddenly sounds extremely conservative, and coffee gets even less normal when people stop worrying about what is in the cup and start reading what is left at the bottom. Turkish coffee. People read your future in the sludge at the bottom of this cup. That's an actual tradition. Coffee is ground almost to powder, simmered directly with water and often sugar in a small thezve, then poured without filtering. The grounds settle as you drink, so you stop before reaching the bottom. The method reaches back to the Ottoman Empire and some of the earliest coffeehouse culture in Istanbul. After the cup is empty, people can flip it onto the saucer and read the dried patterns left by the grounds like tea leaves. That is one of the oldest coffee traditions here. The next one became famous for something that happens before the coffee ever reaches a cup. Kopi luwak. This one technically isn't a drink at all. It's coffee defined by what happens to the beans before roasting inside an animal. Asian palm civets eat ripe coffee cherries, and the beans pass through their digestive system intact. Workers collect the beans from the droppings, clean them, and roast them. That bizarre process helped turn Kopi luwak into one of the most expensive and notorious coffees in the world. The darker part is what demand created afterward. Caged civets force-fed cherries to keep production moving. Truly wild collected Kopi luwak exists, but the name on a bag does not automatically mean the animal lived wild. At least that coffee still starts with beans. The next family of drinks can be made from the same espresso and water, yet taste surprisingly different just because the pour order changes. Americano and long black. American soldiers stationed in Italy during World War II reportedly found straight espresso too small and too intense, so they did the most American fix imaginable: add more water. That became the story behind the Americano, espresso diluted with hot water. It can resemble drip coffee in strength, but it is still built from pressure-extracted espresso, so it does not taste exactly the same. The long black uses the same two ingredients, but flips the order. Hot water first, espresso poured on top. That helps preserve more crema, making the first sip feel bolder. Same ingredients, opposite order. And if diluted espresso still is not enough caffeine, American diner culture has an even less subtle solution: red eye, black eye, and dead eye. These sound like boxing injuries. They are actually coffee orders. A red eye is brewed coffee with 1 shot of espresso. Black eye adds 2. Dead eye adds 3. No delicate ratio, no foam art, no ceremony. Just coffee stacked on coffee. They are strongly associated with American diner culture and people who care much more about staying awake than tasting a fragile floral note. That might be the least romantic use of espresso here. Mocha has the opposite problem. People assume its name came from chocolate, and it did not. Mocha. This name has nothing to do with chocolate. It's a city. Mocha is a port in Yemen that became one of the great historical hubs of the coffee trade. Coffee associated with the region was known for chocolate-like notes, and the place name became tied to that flavor long before modern cafes started pouring chocolate syrup into espresso. Today, a mocha is basically espresso, chocolate, and steamed milk, one of the most dessert-like standard coffee orders. The weird part is that the name traveled through centuries of coffee history before actual chocolate became the obvious part of the drink. And if chocolate sounds like the wildest thing people mix with coffee, Hong Kong would like a word: yuanyang. This drink mixes coffee with milk tea because apparently choosing one source of caffeine was unnecessary. Yuanyang is a Hong Kong drink that combines coffee with strong Hong Kong-style milk tea. The name refers to mandarin ducks, used as a symbol for two very different things paired together. It grew out of Hong Kong cha chan teng culture, where fast, affordable drinks had to fit everyday working life. Hot or iced, it is coffee and tea sharing the same glass instead of fighting for the menu. Back in Europe and the Americas, the coffee and milk argument gets less exotic, but somehow even more confusing. Café au lait, café con leche, and breve. These all look like relatives of a latte, but the coffee base and dairy can change completely. French café au lait is strong brewed coffee with hot milk, no espresso required, and can arrive in a wide breakfast bowl perfect for dunking bread or pastry. Café con leche varies by country, but usually pairs strong coffee or espresso with hot milk, and often sugar. A breve stays espresso-based but swaps milk for half and half, making it richer and heavier. 3 drinks that look similar from across the cafe, but behave very differently once you taste them. Now for another mistake people make constantly, assuming every cold coffee started cold. Cold brew, iced coffee, and nitro cold brew. These 3 sound interchangeable. They are not. Iced coffee is coffee brewed hot and then chilled or poured over ice. Cold brew skips heat entirely. Coarse grounds steep in cold water for roughly 12 to 24 hours, usually producing a smoother cup. Nitro cold brew takes that cold brew and infuses it with nitrogen. The tiny bubbles create a creamy, almost velvety texture that can make the drink seem sweeter, even when no sugar was added. Iced coffee is hot coffee that got cold. Cold brew was never hot. Nitro is cold brew wearing a different texture. But one of the earliest famous cold coffee ideas went in a direction modern cafes rarely dare to follow: lemon. Mazagran. Coffee and lemonade sound like somebody lost a bet. In parts of Europe, that combination became a real drink. Mazagran traces its story to 1840s Algeria, where French soldiers drank coffee cold when milk was scarce. The idea traveled back to Europe and evolved. In Portugal, versions commonly pair espresso over ice with lemon, sometimes even sparkling water. The result sits somewhere between coffee and lemonade, sharp, cold, caffeinated, and almost impossible to confuse with a latte. This next coffee goes the opposite direction. Tiny, hot, and built to hit immediately. Café Cubano. Baristas whip the first drops of espresso with sugar like they're running a tiny science experiment. Those concentrated first drops get beaten with sugar into a pale, thick espuma, then the rest of the coffee pours in. The sugar is not just stirred into a finished drink, it becomes part of the texture from the beginning. Walk through Miami's Little Havana, and this is everyday coffee culture, served from walk-up windows and drunk fast, strong, sweet, and small. From one of the fastest coffees on the list, we're slowing down to one invented to make stranded passengers feel human again: Irish coffee. This drink exists because a plane load of cold, delayed passengers needed comfort more than caffeine. According to the popular story, a bartender at the flying boat terminal in Foynes, Ireland, added whiskey to hot coffee for transatlantic passengers stuck in bad weather. The build is coffee, whiskey, sugar, and thick cream floated on top. You drink the hot coffee through the cold cream, getting 2 temperatures in the same sip. It might be the only coffee here invented specifically to comfort someone, instead of jolt them awake. If you enjoy food stories like this, channel members help support more deep dives, and the next 2 coffees prove the internet can rewrite a menu almost overnight: Frappuccino and Dalgona coffee. One became a massive trademarked cafe product. The other exploded during lockdown. Neither began as some ancient coffee ritual. Frappuccino isn't an Italian word. It became a Starbucks trademark for a blended coffee drink packed with ice, milk, syrups, and often whipped cream. Dalgona uses instant coffee, sugar, and hot water whipped into a thick foam over milk. Similar whipped coffee techniques existed in places like India and Pakistan long before the name went viral. But social media in 2020 turned it into a global obsession. Both prove the same thing. Some coffee traditions take centuries. Others need a blender, a trademark, or a phone camera. And now for a coffee that can't decide whether it belongs on the drink menu or the dessert menu. Affogato. Is it a drink or dessert? That argument is part of the fun. Affogato means drowned in Italian, a hot shot of espresso poured over a scoop of cold ice cream or gelato. The edges melt instantly, so every spoonful changes as hot coffee and frozen dessert collapse into each other. It's too sweet to feel like normal coffee, and too coffee-forward to feel like ordinary ice cream. And it only exists in its perfect form for a few minutes before everything melts. Vietnam put egg on top of coffee. For this next one, Scandinavia puts the egg into the coffee, sometimes shell and all. Scandinavian egg coffee. This might be the strangest brewing trick on the entire list because the egg goes into the grounds before you drink anything. In Scandinavian and Scandinavian American traditions, raw egg can be mixed directly with dry coffee grounds before brewing. Some versions even include crushed shell. As the mixture cooks, the egg coagulates and helps gather the grounds into a clump, leaving a clearer, milder cup behind. So Vietnamese egg coffee turns egg into a sweet custard on top. Scandinavian egg coffee uses egg inside the brewing process itself. Same ingredient, completely opposite job. And that is basically coffee in one sentence. The same bean can become a tiny espresso, a bowl of milk, a lemony iced drink, cheese you eat with a spoon, or coffee brewed with an egg. Now you know what you're actually ordering. Subscribe for more food breakdowns.